Hey there, in today's video I'm going to give you an update on the business that I've been trying to start. Now for a quick recap in case you haven't been following along, I came up with an idea for a new type of pet carrier for cats and small dogs. And since the beginning of this year, I've been going through the process of trying to get the product designed and developed so that I could launch it and eventually try to build a legitimate business around it. It's been a few months since my last video on this topic, so I thought it was time to give an update on how things have been going. And unfortunately, I've actually hit a little bit of a wall and I've experienced a kind of embarrassing setback that I want to talk about how it happened and how I'm going to go about getting over it and moving forward. So in this video, I'm going to do three things. First of all, I'm going to tell you all about the major setback I've had in the product design and development phase. Then I'm going to tell you exactly what I'm planning to do to get over this hurdle and move to the next step. And then finally, I'm going to give a quick update on my finances and where I expect things to go. All throughout this process, I'm planning on sharing my journey in every single step of the way, including the behind the scenes details, like how I'm making the decisions that I make and my finances, all of my expenses that I'm incurring to start up this business. And then eventually, if I actually have a product to sell, what the revenues end up looking like and how I'm going to set my pricing strategy and so on and so forth. So first things first, what happened with my product design that caused things to go off track? Well, it's a bit of a long story, but essentially the product designer that I was working with ghosted me completely. Essentially, there's a product designer that I've been working with since around January. And this is the guy that designed the first iteration of the pet carrier, helped me make one prototype, and then the prototype was actually manufactured and shipped to me. After I received that first prototype, we realized that there was a number of things that still needed to be changed because of course, when you actually have something in your hands for the first time, when you're trying to build a new product, you realize that some things you thought might work in the design process don't actually work in real life. So we went back and forth for a bit, talking about how to redesign the product and then come up with an idea for a second prototype that will include those revisions. And I paid the product designer around $800 to start working on the product redesign. Long story short, a couple of weeks later, he came back with a slightly revised version, but it still wasn't exactly what I wanted. And then when I gave him a list of new things that I wanted him to do, he literally just ghosted me and hasn't responded since. So now I'm left in the lurch where I have a product design that's maybe 75–80% finished. It's close to what I want the final product to be, but it's not quite there yet. And it's not sufficient that I can actually apply for my patents or actually build a second prototype and then start marketing the product and launching it. As for why the product designer decided to just completely walk away from the project without even communicating to me, I have no idea what the reasoning behind that is. Of course, I thought I was a pretty good client. I paid him a decent amount of money, which I'll show you in the spreadsheet in a couple of minutes. And I was willing to move forward with new iterations of the product design, as well as a second iteration of the prototype, which would have been another sizable chunk of business for this person. So I have no idea why he decided to ghost me and walk away, but it is what it is. And now I'm thinking back to a video that I published, I think it was in February or March, where I said I had found someone I thought was a pretty solid product designer that was offering services at a very reasonable price, and actually pretty low compared to the local product designers, because this guy lived and worked out of Brazil and also had connections with suppliers and prototype manufacturers in China. And back in February or March, I remember saying something along the lines of, I hope it isn't too good to be true, or I hope I'm not getting an inferior quality of service for what I'm paying for. And honestly, for the first few months and the first iteration of the product design, I was very happy with the results and with the working relationship that we had. But obviously things fell apart, and now I'm left in the lurch a little bit, and I'm left thinking that maybe I should have just paid more money up front to go with a local product designer that I knew would be more reliable and more trustworthy, because in the end, really, I might end up spending around the same amount of money anyways. So really, I guess this is a valuable lesson for me in that going with the lowest cost option is maybe not the best choice. And in hindsight, of course, I wish that I had selected a different product designer, but there's nothing that I can do now, and I'm still left with a decent product that I think has potential. It just needs that extra 20% of design work to get me over the finish line so that I can file for my patents and then start working on actually launching this thing. So this leads me to next steps. Now, of course, since my product designer ghosted me completely, I needed to find someone to replace him. Now, there's a couple of ways that you can go about finding a product designer. There's websites like Upwork or Fiverr where you can find freelance product designers from anywhere around the world. But at this point, I'm not really feeling like taking a risk and working with another freelancer who may or may not be able to deliver what they're promising. So I live in Ottawa, Canada, which you may know if you've watched some of my other videos. And in this city, there's an organization called the Prototyping Lab, which actually helps budding inventors or entrepreneurs come up with product designs and develop prototypes. And the Prototyping Lab actually offers these design services at a discounted rate because it's subsidized by the government to encourage innovation and job creation. So I've had a couple of meetings with these guys and I think I'm going to go with them. I'm just waiting on the official quote to come back, at which point I will happily make the payment and keep going with this because I'm not ready to give up on it quite yet. I'm well aware of the sunk cost fallacy, which is that once you've invested a lot of time, energy, or money into a project, you're less likely to want to walk away from it because you feel as if you're owed something for what you've put into it. Now, at this point, I still fully realize that any additional money I spend may be completely lost if this product does not end up panning out. That said, I'm still somewhat optimistic that I can get this thing to market. And what I really like about these new product designers is that they have a full team. It's a legitimate institution that's backed by the government, so it's not a situation where I have to worry about the risk of people not showing up or not delivering what they promise. So that is the situation where I'm currently at. Now, in terms of timelines moving forward, this is going to push things back significantly. Originally, I was really hoping to launch the product in the fall, sometime around September or October, so that I could get it in before that kind of Christmas rush. And I just thought that it would be a good time to have a product launch because people are coming back from summer vacations and they're paying more attention to social media and digital marketing and things like that. But I'm not sure if it's going to pan out that way. I may have to wait longer, potentially even until next year, which is a little bit of a disappointment. Finally, let's just talk briefly about the financial situation of this company, I guess, even though I still have no revenue. So my expenses actually haven't changed since my last update, but in case you haven't been following along, these are all of the expenses that I've incurred to date to develop this product. So you can see that the vast majority of the money that I've spent so far, which is in total just under $14,000, is dedicated towards product design, development, and prototyping. I've spent around $8,300 on the actual product design, plus almost $800 to redesign parts of the product once I received the prototype. Now there's a couple of other miscellaneous expenses in there. For instance, I registered the domain name for my website and I incorporated a company for this project, even though I'm still not at the point really where I can call this a legitimate business. And I paid a decent amount of money to have a logo designed, which is now ready to go. I may have been a little bit early on some of these things, for instance, the logo design and coming up with the branding and things like that. But of course, that's one of the fun parts of this and I was pretty excited to do it. So I paid out of pocket for that well before I even had anything to sell, so it may be a waste of money, but we'll see. Anyways, yeah, currently sitting at around $14,000 for this project, but I am anticipating some more expenses moving forward. So this right here is a list of the expenses that I think I'll probably incur to actually bring this product to market if I can get that far. I anticipate that it's probably gonna cost me at least an additional $5,000 to finish up the product design and get the second prototype to the point where I can actually use it to shoot some promotional videos and then launch the product. In addition, I'm gonna have to apply for some patents before going public with this, otherwise anybody can just steal the idea and run away with it. In the budget, I've put an amount of $2,000, which I probably will be able to get, but it's a highly discounted rate because I actually have some family members that are lawyers, and so those connections are really helping me out in this case. But normally it would cost much more than that to get patents. So once I have my product ready to launch and my intellectual property is protected, there's a couple more expenses that I'm going to need to pay for. First of all, since I'm planning on launching on Kickstarter, I'm going to need to collect some emails because I've done a bunch of research and it turns out the best way to actually have a successful Kickstarter campaign is to get a lot of interest from people before you even launch, so that on the very first day when you go live with the product, you have people coming onto your Kickstarter campaign and pledging and backing it. One of the best ways to do that is before launching to do a marketing campaign where you collect emails from people that are potentially interested, so then you can send all those people an email on the very first day. So I've put a budget of $1,000 in here for that. I'm not sure if that would actually be enough, but it's just a baseline amount that I think I would be willing to spend. And the final expense that I foresee to actually launch this product and see if there's any interest in it is, of course, the marketing. Once it's launched on the website, you really need to drive traffic to it, because you can't just hope that the Kickstarter algorithm is going to promote your product. And in fact, if you don't do any promotion yourself, I've read that it's very unlikely to succeed. So I'm going to have to dedicate some money to digital marketing to promote my Kickstarter campaign once it's launched. I'm not sure at this point how much money I should spend. It may be decided by the amount of money that I'm actually willing to spend, even if it's potentially not as much as I would hope, but we'll see how things are going. So at this point, it's looking like my total budget to develop the product design, get the patents, and then launch the product on Kickstarter is going to be probably in the realm of $25,000. Obviously, that is a lot of money and it's a huge risk, but of course, this has been a really interesting experiment for me to do. And then also documenting it here on YouTube is helping to defray the costs a little bit, because some of the revenue that I'm earning from my YouTube channel, I'm putting back into developing this product so I can potentially create more interesting content around starting a new business from scratch. Anyways, that's it for my update today. A little bit of an embarrassing setback, but things are starting to get back on track, and hopefully it will be more smooth sailing from here, although, touch wood, I'm not so sure that that's going to be the case, because things never seem to go as planned. Thanks so much for watching. If you want to see more content related to starting a business, as well as personal finance and investing, please don't forget to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you next time.